All right, so today we're going way back in time
Oh, wow.
to explore how the ancient Chinese viewed and treated heat illnesses
Yep.
using concepts like yin and yang and qi and that whole intricate network of meridians.
Fascinating stuff.
It's incredible how this wisdom has been passed down for centuries.
I know, it's amazing.
Our guide for this deep dive is an incredible text called The Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine.
Right, I've heard of that one.
Specifically, we'll be looking at chapter 23.
Interesting.
It's like peeking into the minds of these ancient healers.
You know what's really fascinating about this text?
What's that?
It's considered the foundation of traditional Chinese medicine.
Really? You mean TCM?
Exactly, TCM. And it's packed with insights into how they viewed and treated heat-related conditions.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Sure.
The text starts by describing the early signs of heat illness. Things like painful skin, a stuffy nose, a feeling of fullness in the face.
Sounds familiar.
Right. Even today, those are things we might experience when we're overheated.
Definitely.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
TCM doesn't just see this as your body getting too hot.
Oh.
They saw it as your qi, your vital energy getting thrown off balance by this excess heat.
That's a key difference in perspective right there.
So true.
TCM is all about understanding the underlying imbalance that's causing the symptoms.
Got it.
It's a much more holistic approach than just treating the symptoms themselves.
Okay, so wait.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling overheated, it's not just a temperature thing.
Oh.
It's my qi being out of whack.
Precisely.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
I know it's a different way of thinking about things.
It is.
But it makes a lot of sense when you really delve into it.
What would they have done about it back then?
Well, they had a few tricks up their sleeves.
Like what?
The text talks about specific needling techniques.
Okay.
Including something called the 59 needling techniques.
Wait, 59 needles.
Can you imagine that?
59 needles. Wouldn't that be incredibly painful?
You know, that's a common misconception.
Oh, is it?
The needles used in acupuncture are incredibly thin, much finer than the needles used for injections.
Oh, okay.
And the sensation is often described as a tingling or pressure, not sharp pain.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Good.
But 59 of them still sounds like a lot.
It might sound intense.
It does.
But each needle is strategically placed at specific points along the body's meridians.
You mean those energy highways we talked about?
Exactly. They actually mapped out 59 specific points.
Wow.
Across your hands, feet, head, the works.
So each point was carefully chosen.
Yes, to get that energy flowing right again.
Wow, they really had this whole system figured out.
They did. It's remarkable.
But needling aside,
yeah,
what about things like diet or lifestyle changes?
Absolutely.
Did they address those too?
TCM considers all aspects of a person's life.
Okay.
Diet, lifestyle, emotional state. Everything is interconnected.
So everything is connected.
It's all part of the big picture. While this specific chapter focuses on needling techniques, other TCM texts go into detail about dietary recommendations and lifestyle practices.
To maintain balance and prevent illness.
Exactly.
So there's a lot more to this than just needles.
It's a whole philosophy of health and well-being.
This is blowing my mind.
I know, it's fascinating stuff.
It is. This idea of balance is key to TCM.
Absolutely.
And it comes up again when they talk about a condition called heart hernia.
Heart hernia.
Interesting.
Now, this isn't what we think of today as a physical hernia.
Right.
In TCM, it's this sudden, intense chest pain.
Oh, wow.
Which they link to disruptions in the heart's energy flow.
Exactly. Remember, they're looking at everything from an energy perspective.
And to treat it, they would use needling.
That's right.
But this time, targeting specific meridians related to the heart.
Like the tie-in and join meridians.
And they even mentioned drawing blood from associated vessels to address any blockages.
Wow, so they had a variety of techniques.
They did. Okay, I get the chi part.
But I'm still a little skeptical about all those needles.
That's understandable.
Is there any scientific evidence to back this up?
That's a great question. And actually, acupuncture has been studied extensively in modern times.
Interesting.
And there is growing scientific evidence supporting its effectiveness for various conditions.
Like what?
Including pain relief and reducing nausea. While the mechanisms are still being explored, research suggests that acupuncture may stimulate the release of endorphins, modulate the nervous system, and improve blood flow.
So even though it's an ancient practice, modern science is starting to catch up and understand how it might work.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
That's pretty cool.
It speaks to the value of keeping an open mind when exploring different healing traditions.
Sure.
Just because something is ancient doesn't mean it's outdated or without merit.
I'm definitely seeing that now.
Good.
But tell me, did they ever come across cases where their methods didn't work?
That's a really insightful question.
What about those situations where someone was just too sick?
You know, the text actually addresses that.
Oh, it does.
They have a whole section on prognosis.
Prognosis.
Which is basically how they determine if someone was likely to recover.
And a big part of that was observing sweat and pulse.
Yes, they were very keen observers, these ancient healers.
So sweating could be a good sign, a bad sign, or completely absent.
Exactly. Each scenario had a different meaning.
So next time I'm feeling overheated, maybe I should skip the ice cream and try some of these TCM techniques.
Well, you know, I'm not a medical professional.
Right.
So I can't offer medical advice.
Of course.
But exploring those options and seeing what resonates with you is certainly an interesting path to consider.
All right, back to the text.
Okay.
So sweating can be a good thing, a bad thing, or not a thing at all.
It's all about the context.
What did they make of that?
Yeah. So they noticed that if someone was sweating and their pulse became calm,
okay,
that was a positive sign.
So they were on the mend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It meant their body was doing what it needed to do to cool down and restore balance.
Got it. But what if they were sweating?
Yeah.
But their pulse was still like rapid or irregular?
Oh, that was a cause for concern.
So it's not just about whether you're sweating,
No,
but also what your pulse is doing at the same time.
You got it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about those cases where there's no sweating at all?
Oh, that was a big red flag for them.
Really?
Especially if it came with a bounding pulse.
Oh, wow.
They saw it as a sign that the body's yang energy.
That's the active heating energy, right?
Yeah, exactly. The yang energy was at its extreme limit.
So the heat was trapped inside.
Yeah. Unable to escape.
Not a good situation to be in.
Definitely not.
It's like your internal thermostat is completely out of whack.
A good analogy.
And I'm guessing they had specific techniques
for
dealing with that kind of extreme heat, right?
Absolutely. Wouldn't just stand there and watch.
Right.
Remember those 59 needling techniques we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah, with all those needles.
Exactly. They'd use those to try and get the energy flowing again, to clear the blockages and allow the heat to escape.
So they weren't just sitting around theorizing about ki and meridians. Ooh. They were actually putting this knowledge into practice to help people heal.
Exactly. And it wasn't a one-size-fits-all approach either.
Oh, really?
They understood that each person is unique.
Right.
And would tailor their treatments accordingly.
Interesting. So give me an example.
For example, they believed that if the problem was caused by cold invading the body, they would use warm needles to disperse it.
Kind of push it out.
Exactly. But if it was excess heat, they'd use rapid needling techniques to draw it out.
So different techniques for different causes.
It's like they had a whole toolbox of techniques at their disposal.
Wow.
And they knew exactly which tool to use for each situation.
It's actually quite impressive.
It is. It really highlights their deep understanding of the body's energetic systems.
And their ability to work with those systems to promote healing. Okay, let's get back to those untreatable conditions.
Right.
They observed sweat and pulse, used their needling techniques. But were there ever times when they knew they couldn't help someone?
That's a sensitive topic.
I understand.
And the text does address it with a certain gravitas.
So what did that look like?
They describe specific signs that indicated a patient was nearing the end.
Oh, wow.
For example, if someone had a high fever without sweating, that was a very bad sign.
I see.
Or if they had persistent diarrhea with a swollen belly.
Oh, gosh.
That also pointed towards a grim prognosis.
It must have been difficult for them to acknowledge those limits.
Yeah, especially in a time when medical options were so limited.
Definitely. But they must have seen those patterns play out over and over again.
It's a reminder that even with the best intentions and techniques, there are forces of nature that we can't always control.
So true.
And it must have been incredibly humbling for them to witness those limits firsthand.
It's humbling for me just hearing about it.
I can imagine.
But even in those untreatable cases, they still had incredible knowledge about how these illnesses progressed.
Absolutely. They might not have been able to cure every ailment.
Right.
But they were meticulous observers of the human body.
They really paid attention.
They understood the subtle signs and symptoms, and they used that knowledge to provide comfort and support even when a cure wasn't possible.
So even though their methods were different from what we use today, they were still dedicated healers.
Yes.
They were trying to ease suffering and improve people's lives with the knowledge they had.
Precisely. And that dedication to understanding the human body and seeking ways to restore balance is something that transcends time and culture.
It's a universal desire.
It's at the heart of all healing traditions, whether ancient or modern.
It makes you wonder what they would think of our modern medical system.
I know, it's fascinating to think about.
We have all these advanced technologies and treatments.
Right, but do you think we've lost something along the way? Has we lost touch with some of the fundamental principles of healing that they understood so well?
That's a profound question.
It is, and one that I don't think has a simple answer.
Right.
On the one hand, we've made incredible strides in medicine.
Absolutely. We have life-saving surgeries, powerful medications, and diagnostic tools that can see inside the human body with astonishing clarity.
It's truly remarkable what we can do now.
But on the other hand,
our healthcare system is often fragmented.
In what way?
We focus on treating diseases rather than addressing the underlying causes of illness. Sometimes overlook the interconnectedness of the body, mind, and spirit.
Which is something that the ancient Chinese understood intuitively.
Exactly.
That's like we're so focused on the trees that we've lost sight of the forest.
That's a great way to put it. And I think there's a growing movement to bridge that gap.
To bring modern medicine and ancient wisdom together.
Exactly. To bring together the best of modern medicine with the wisdom of ancient healing traditions.
So maybe it's not about choosing one over the other.
No, but finding a way to integrate them to create a more holistic and effective approach to healthcare.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that we can learn from both the past and the present.
And that true healing often involves addressing the whole person, not just their symptoms.
Exactly.
All right, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's circle back to the text itself.
Okay.
What are the key takeaways here?
Good question.
What are those 2-3 core principles that really set TCM apart from the way we think about medicine today?
That's a great question. I think the first key takeaway is the emphasis on ki.
The vital energy that flows through the body.
Exactly. TCM sees illness as a disruption of this flow, and treatment is all about restoring balance and harmony to the system.
So it's not just about killing germs or fixing broken parts.
Nope.
It's about getting that energy flowing smoothly again.
Exactly.
That's definitely different from how we usually approach things.
It is. Another key principle is the interconnectedness of everything.
The body is not seen as a collection of separate parts, but as a complex system where everything is interconnected and influences everything else.
Right. So they wouldn't just focus on the specific area where you're experiencing symptoms.
No, they'd look at your overall health and well-being.
Considering your diet, lifestyle, emotional state, and even the seasons.
That's right.
It's like they're treating the whole person, not just the disease.
Exactly. And that's something we could probably learn a lot from today.
I agree. What's the third key principle?
The third principle, which is closely related to the second, is the concept of balance.
Balance between yin and yang.
Precisely. TCM sees health as a state of dynamic equilibrium between opposing forces.
Yin and yang.
Yeah, got it. Illness arises when this balance is disrupted.
Crazy.
So the goal of treatment is not just to eliminate symptoms, but to restore harmony and balance to the entire system.
Okay, so the 3 key principles are key, interconnectedness, and balance.
Exactly.
They sound pretty straightforward.
They do.
But I'm starting to realize how profound they actually are.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
It does.
Maybe we've gotten a bit too focused on the nuts and bolts of the body. And forgotten about the energy that animates it all.
It's easy to get caught up in the details.
True.
Especially with all the advancements we've made.
Right.
But sometimes taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture can be incredibly insightful.
Speaking of the bigger picture, this whole conversation has sparked a ton of questions for me.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like if I'm dealing with something like a summer cold or just feeling overheated,
are
there any simple TCM techniques I could try at home? Besides sticking needles in myself.
Well, I'm not a licensed acupuncturist, so I can't give you specific medical advice.
Right, of course.
But there are definitely some general TCM principles you can incorporate into your daily life.
Okay.
Like
Great.
what? For example, TCM places a lot of emphasis on diet.
So what would they have recommended for someone dealing with heat?
Would they be all about, ice-cold drinks and salads?
Actually, that's a common misconception.
Oh, really?
TCM wouldn't necessarily recommend going overboard with cold foods and drinks.
Wait, really?
Especially if you're feeling overheated.
Why not? It seems like that would make sense.
It might seem counterintuitive.
It does.
The TCM sees it differently. They believe that consuming too many cold things can actually shock your system.
Oh, wow.
And make it harder for your body to regulate its temperature.
So it's like putting a Band-Aid on a deeper issue.
Exactly. You're not really addressing the root cause.
So what would they recommend instead?
They'd probably suggest focusing on foods that are cooling, but not overly cold.
Like what?
Things like cucumber watermelon mint or chrysanthemum tea.
Okay. Those sound pretty refreshing.
And they definitely emphasize staying hydrated.
Right.
But with room temperature or warm water rather than ice-cold drinks.
Interesting. So it's about finding that balance.
Yes.
Like we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
Not going to extremes. But finding that middle ground where your body can function optimally.
Exactly.
It's like Goldilocks and the three bears of temperature.
I like that.
Not too hot, not too cold, but just right.
That's a great way to put it.
And that applies to so many aspects of life, not just diet.
It does. TCM is all about finding that sweet spot, that state of harmony where your energy flows freely and your body can heal itself.
I'm starting to see how this ancient system of medicine is still relevant today.
It is. It's timeless wisdom.
It's not just about herbs and needles.
Nope.
It's about a whole way of thinking about health and well-being.
Exactly.
It's about tuning into your body, understanding its signals, and making choices that support its natural ability to heal.
That's beautifully said. I think that's the most valuable takeaway from this deep dive.
I think so too.
It's a reminder that we have an innate capacity for healing.
You do.
And that by understanding the principles of balance and harmony, we can empower ourselves to live healthier and more fulfilling lives.
So to our listener out there, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
Hopefully some inspiration too.
Maybe you'll be inspired to try some cucumber and mint tea next time you're feeling overheated.
That sounds refreshing.
Or maybe you'll simply pause for a moment to appreciate the wisdom of those ancient healers.
Who dedicated their lives to understanding the human body and its intricate energy systems.
Exactly. And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll even be inspired to explore the world of TCM a little further.
There's so much to learn.
And see what other insights it holds for you. There's a whole universe of knowledge out there waiting to be discovered.
It's an exciting journey.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, stay curious, stay open-minded, and keep exploring. Say low.